conditions under which they are living.
Do you have a component within your initiative that kind of looks at that sort of situation?
Yes, well, we have a program called Peace. In the whole Nisisi movement, we have a program called Peace Through Prosperity, where we work exclusively with youth in the informal sector to help them engage in income-generating activities at a very low level. But wanajipanga, whether they're just growing seedlings which they can sell. Some are doing simple things like a car wash. We have some ladies in some places where it's a hairdressing salon. But the good thing about it is that it also, people feel a sense of dignity when they're doing their own thing and earning their future. They feel a certain.
Let's go to politics. We have a new constitution. We passed a constitution and we are happy about it. But are we happy about the way the implementation is going? Are you confident that we're going the right direction in terms of implementation?
I think no, I'm not happy that we're going. I don't think we're going.
Do you think
well.
there's will to implement it?
There's not the will to implement it. I think that we had a whole phenomenon called the watermelons during the referendum, and one of the beautiful things that the ICC prosecutor did by naming those 6 names is that now we have no watermelons. We have only green and red, and they've come out. Now, they've come out. It's been a wonderful thing to see that, and it was so. I find it a positive development that the reality has set in with regard to the Constitution, and we've realized that actually we're going to have to fight every step of the way to implement this Constitution. Because the moment those ICC names were read out, immediately there was a move to amend to amend the Constitution to remove us from the Rome Statute, and that's a huge backward step. On day one, the first step you make is a backward one, and I realize it has to be resisted, which is why there's a Kenyan Yetu, Katiba Yetu, Maisha Yetu campaign, which you're seeing a lot of activity around. A campaign also against pulling out of the ICC and the Rome Statute, and to collect 1 million signatures for that. So people, we realize, and you've seen Professor Guy, he was in Kisumu yesterday, just a few days before he was in Mombasa, I was in Bungoma, and people are all over the place trying to build this energy. If we tusijipanga, tutapangwa. So, and we've got to ensure that we protect this Constitution. If we allow it to not fail, but for a sense of widespread, deep public disappointment to set in regard to its implementation, that will have a very negative effect even on our politics, and will lead to a deepening of the fragmentation that we're already seeing, which is along ethnic lines, and that's very unhealthy for our politics. We hear of KKK, we hear of that each community must have only one spokesperson, which is really a warlord kind of situation, which is, I think, very, very sad.
But you did support you did support us getting out of ICC.
No,
in fact, for
I never supported us pulling out of the ICC. My question to Kenyans as I traveled around the country in 2009 was, are you sure
you want us to go to the ICC?
You want us to go to the Hague? Are you sure? Or do you want us to do it here? And we had opportunities, which we squandered. Do you want us to do a hybrid? We could have done a hybrid here in Arusha. There are options. We had options. My attitude was very strongly, but once we choose, there's no going back. And we had signed the Rome Statute, we could not pull back.
Absolutely.
But once we had handed over this whole thing to the ICC, oh no, absolutely. That's it. We cannot.
The reason why people are opposed to local tribunal was because it was going to be manipulated.
Yes.
And I'm sure the one they want to set up now is so that it can be
manipulated. Correct. So and going around the country, even now, that is a very widespread feeling. People say, when I ask a question again, mnaonaje hii kitu ya ICC? Watu waende Hague, waende. And they'll shout it. Hakuna huruma, hakuna. People say, watu sita, we are 40 million. 6 cannot hold us hostage.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter who they are. Not commenting about them, but say, we have to move on. So that train has left the station, and I think trying to pull out of the Rome Statute is, whatever one thinks about it, is a backward move by Kenya. It makes us look extremely silly on the international stage, with our vice president flying around begging other people, videos being made. We have the kind of exchanges we are seeing around this, the appointment of the Chief Justice and other things. It really makes us look like a banana republic.
I see what you mean. But what does that say about the African Union hugely supporting that proposal for us to defer? It looks like Africa in itself also is lethargic in terms of a democratic.
It is. We have had a democratic recession in Africa over the last 4 years. If you look at the number of coup attempts and successful coups, the number of presidential term limits, that constitutional term limits that have been removed from constitutions, so it's been a step backward. But that usually heralds at a moment where there's going to be some resistance. I think the situation in Ivory Coast is extremely important for all of Africa, that we need to get rid of this man, Mr. Gbagbo. He lost the election, he should go. Otherwise, we'll be in trouble. We'll be in a situation where we hold elections and and people refuse to leave office even when they've lost, and to create violence or create a situation like here in Kenya, where we have a condition of what I would call perpetual volatility for the first time in our history. We're a volatile place now. Before, we were a stable place with episodes of volatility around elections, around assassinations, around disagreements in the elite. But now the volatility is constant. The newspapers have become, Parliament is a soap opera. We watch it instead of watching other programs. You see, because of the kind of contestation that is taking place. Now, in a letter hofu, you talk to ordinary people, they say, we don't like this when President, Prime Minister are disagreeing in front of us. You see, it is something that causes us a sense of despondency and a sense that we don't know where we are going. And that is, the poorest person in the poorest part of the country.
Absolutely.
You get that kind
corruption.
of
Are you happy in terms of?
I'm a supporter of the work that Mr. Lumumba is doing. I'm sad to say my own impression and what all the polls that study corruption show is that corruption is worse now in Kenya than it has been ever. But what has happened
Why
is
so?
Why so?
Because
Where are the figures?
Because, well, if you look at the statistics, if you look at our rankings in the failed states index, Transparency International Corruption Perception Index, World Economic Forum Competitive Global Competitive Index, I can run off a whole list. Kenya has been sliding steadily in terms of governance and corruption. But what has happened is that corruption has been decentralized and has also been devolved. And so the centralized big deal, big scam kind of corruption that we had in the 1990s, 1980s, which captured the public imagination, involved billions at a time. Some of that is still going on, but we have also a trickle down of a laissez-faire kind of corruption that is affecting people in a very, very immediate and painful sort of way. And this hits poor people the most. It hits poor people the most because it hurts them when they go into a hospital, need an x-ray, you've got to pay. It really causes tremendous pain amongst ordinary people.
How do you balance that in terms of, because like you said, the hardware, like what you call it, hardware has grown, economy is growing, education sector doing very well. How then do you say that that in terms of corruption and us really looking bad? One would imagine that if you're doing that badly in terms of ratings globally, it would obviously affect how you run your country. But we seem to be doing very well in terms of economy. So how do you say?
I think the contradictions, the contradiction there emerges very much through the inequalities that we see. In that all that growth that you're seeing is accruing to a very small part of our population. And therefore we have large parts of our population that feel left out. It makes our politics more violent, more volatile. You have a deepening of social maladies that we've seen before, but now they've reached epidemic proportions in some places like drugs at the coast. The heroin is a major problem, which, we always knew that heroin used to pass through the coast. Now we have a major problem with drug takers in the coast itself. If you go across large parts of central province and parts of eastern, you have people drinking poison. I won't call it even alcohol. Drinking poison because it's concoctions that cause blindness and destroying an entire generation of young men. On that, in that sense, in terms of the majority of young people, this big bulge who are at the bottom of our society, they're missing out on this great thing that's happening here at the top, where we're creating the most interesting new forms of technology with regard to mobile phones. Now, this is the irony. We create the technology that enables us to do all these great things. That same technology is also the one that transmits the information that makes people realize that, hey, Jimmy is actually living much better than me.